Okay, here we are back again. We're going to press our fat quarter and then cut the fabric. So I use steam in my iron. I know a lot of quilters don't do that, but I have some steam in my iron and best press. Best press is the best thing for getting the wrinkles, those ironed in wrinkles out of the fabric. So I'm just going to press this out. Give this a little pop here of steam. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to carefully fold this over. I want to get the edges as even as I can, and the sides as even as I can. Now this fabric has all been washed, so you know the fabric tends to pull when you wash it. It's actually settling back into its grain. So if you steam it a little, you should be able to line things up. Some fabrics you may see, by the time you've got these two edges in line, that it may be skewed to one side. See how close you can get them, but don't worry if it sticks out an inch or so on either side. Just do the best you can. Okay, we're going to need a total of 8 strips from each one of these fabrics. So I'm just going to very gently press, gently. Why am I going to press that? Because it's easier for me to cut it if I have a nice clean edge on the top and on the bottom. Okay, so if you're not using fat quarters, which I have used a lot of fat quarters, but I've used a lot of fabric out of my stash. If you're using selvage to selvage cuts, you will need 4 cuts. What the pattern is calling for is 8 2-inch wide strips. Now, fat quarter is 18 inches, so even if it skews a little bit, all you need is a functional 16 inches, presuming you don't make a mistake. You'll need something 16 inches wide. They call for 22-inch strips, 2-inch by 22-inch long. There aren't many fabrics that can be cut along the center fold, as a fat quarter is, and still give you 22 inches. Some of them, they'll only be maybe barely 21, sometimes a little less than that. So don't worry, when it says you have to cut a 22-inch strip, you're actually not going to be using the entire 22-inch length. You're only going to need 20 1/2 inches for this pattern. So don't stress if they're not all 22. That doesn't mean you need to cut 8 strips selvage to selvage and then lop off 22 inches. You're going to be fine as long as you have 20 1/2 inch. But you got to make sure you're being careful. Okay, so here is my first fat quarter, and I'm going to put my little ironing pad down, handy dandy ironing pad, and this is my favorite tool. This makes life so easy. This is a June Taylor Shape Cuts ruler. This is the Shape Cuts Plus. It's a little longer. I also have the shorter one, the 12-inch one. But I'm just going to lay this. You see, I've got the 0. This is my starting point. And I'm going to lay this line, the 11-inch line, right along my fold. That's why I wanted a neat fold. And this edge here, my selvage edge, is parallel to this line right here. This I know is straight. So I'm going to move it over as close as I can to the edge, so I have as much fabric extra as I may possibly need for an emergency. You know, you always need to have a little extra. Okay, so this is in place. I'm going to put my cutter in the slot and make that first cut. That's going to clean up that edge, and I need 2-inch strips, so I'm just going to cut along every even number. And now I'll rest my hand on top. Do a couple more so this doesn't slip. Let's see, I need a new blade, I suspect. It's sounding a little crunchy. Here's strip number 7. And 16 will give me 8 inches. This is extra, okay? So I actually have, if I goof something up, God forbid, I do have that extra 2 inches plus a little 8 there if I need it. Now I can move this over. Here's my scrap, goes in the dog beds pile. And here's my extra piece, which I save. That gets saved. And here are my 8 strips. Yeah, see what I mean? My blade's getting a little crunchy here. I gotta change that puppy. Okay, so what you're gonna do is cut your pieces, all 15 of your fat quarters or whatever fabric you have selected. Now, like I said, if you're doing fabric from stash and don't have fat quarters, you can go selvage to selvage, cut 4 strips, cut that strip in half along the fold. Should be fine with that. Now, this one, which is one of my very favorite fabrics, I got down to the end, I was able to cut 5 full strips, and then I realized this was off of a cut I had in my stash. OMG, I have only short little pieces left, and I needed 3 more strips. So I took all my short pieces, they're all this long. I took all my short pieces and I seamed them together. See, there's a seam in there, but you can't even see it on the front. It's okay if you have to join it. This one I joined in a straight seam because that's the way the pattern is. It was too hard to join it on the diagonal. But a fabric like this, you could join on the diagonal like you join binding strips on the bias. You know, you cut it and then join it on the diagonal. It's going to be fine. I do use a 2.0 stitch length or a 1.5 stitch length when I'm joining pieces, especially on the diagonal. I like that shorter stitch length, but that's fine. Now I have all the pieces I need, and not to worry. We're going to make this a no stress project. Who needs more stress this time? Okay, we'll come back and start sewing our strip sets.